well. My name is Krista Hosmer, and I will be your host this morning. I traveled with Project Por Amor to Cuba last year and had an amazing time. We learned about the history, culture, and especially the delicious food of Havana during our time there. We truly got to go behind the scenes, and I'm excited. We are bringing that kind of experience to one of America's greatest historic cities this year. A little bit about me. I've been on the Florida Trust board for about a year. Um, Previously, I had worked at the Florida SHPO's office, the State Historic Preservation Office, about 15 years ago, and moved to the financial field. But still live in Tallahassee, but I am from South Florida, and so that's why the Cuba trip was so resonant and poignant for me, and I loved it. To get started, I'd like to share a few housekeeping items about our Lunch and Learn today. We will be recording today's session for those who can't join us live, so they can view today's presentation using our YouTube channel. As we go through the presentation, please remain muted until the end. And if you have a question, you'll have an opportunity to ask it during the Q&A. But you're also more than welcome to type your questions into the chat whenever. And we'll get to as many as possible. With that, I'll turn it over to our speakers, Sage and Russell.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sage. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to meet you a little bit through this, and I hope to spend a week in New Orleans with you at the end of this year. As Krista said, this is our second tour, multi-day immersive architectural and culture tour. The first one was to Cuba, which we hope to be able to resume again in the future as soon as possible once the situation changes. But we're very thrilled to be doing architectural preservation, cultural tours of New Orleans with the Florida Trust. It's an amazing and unique way to see the world, have a deep dive into another culture. And I think this one is very special because this is a very specific and rich type of deep dive into our own culture in terms of as Americans, especially right now, like I mentioned, how it's a little more difficult to travel to around internationally because of geopolitical tensions, with Cuba being an extreme case of that, but everywhere is getting more challenging. And it's a great opportunity to, there's so much to see within the United States, especially just, one state over, and so much, so many new experiences and understanding where we come from and as Americans and what our heritage is. It's like traveling to another country, but just doing it right here. So we're really excited about this, and this is especially trip happening for December is so unique because we're going to be diving into different traditions that are specific to the holidays. And it's the tour is being organized as a three-way partnership between the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation and the Preservation Resource Center of New Orleans, which in many ways is a similar type of nonprofit organization with a similar mission, but based in New Orleans. And then Project Por Amor is the tour operator, my company that works closely with both the organizations to make this happen. So there's a lot of knowledge, expertise, research, passion, and work that goes into really crafting this whole week-long experience from beginning to the end, from the people we meet, the things we learn about, and everything we do. A little bit about Project Por Amor. Uh, we're a small boutique cultural educational tour operator, and we've been since 2007. I'm the president of the company and founder of it, and I'm a composer myself. So I this was an accidental company to start because I was just passionate about travel and about music and working on collaborative music projects in Cuba and Iceland and other parts of the world. And next thing I know, became people were asking me to put together very bespoke experiences, very custom, that really just focus on the arts and the culture of which encompasses everything. Current events, history, what might be around the corner in these different parts of the world, but food, the arts, architecture. But I work with a lot of preservation organizations, and architecture is such an important access point into learning, going beyond, you know, the brick and mortar to the history and the stories and everything that makes a place what it is. And it's the you can, in going back, hundreds of years, decades, or in some cases even thousands of years, just based on what you see in the building. So it's what I love architectural tours so much. And I'd like to introduce my partner Russell from the Preservation Resource Center, who has been working with me to develop this whole itinerary. And so, Russell, why don't you say hello and tell everyone a little bit more about the Preservation Resource Center and more about the tour?
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name's Russell Blanchard. I'm a ninth generation Cajun descendant. So if y'all come to New Orleans, you're going to learn everything about what Cajun means. You're going to learn everything about what Creole means and the difference between both of those. But I work at the Preservation Resource Center. So we've been around since 1974. We're a nonprofit that kind of got started just helping homeowners preserve some of our historic buildings, and then it grew into advocacy, helping protect our historic buildings and landscape from being altered and torn down. And now we have kind of grown into lots of different things. We do educational classes for homeowners on windows and how to keep your home restored. We have historic home specialists, which is like a full day class, which rotates like every 45 minutes. You learn a different aspect of preserving your home. Very big in advocacy around town, fighting to help preserve some of our historic buildings. We had a Frost Stop, like an old 50s diner drive-in hamburger place that they announced that they were going to bulldoze and build a big gray boxy kind of modern building. And thankfully, through our advocacy director, we were able to kind of prevent that. And they're looking at ways to preserve the building and keep the business operating while still building the building kind of in the area. But I'm at the Preservation Resource Center and I'm over our tourism and travel program. So we have another nonprofit that's kind of part of us called Save Our Cemeteries that does a lot of the same preservation work. They've also been around since 1974. They're one of our departments, and they do the same thing in preserving our historic cemeteries. But in addition to that, we have our travel program where we work with Project Por Amor and Sage, and we're able to take people to Cuba before the geopolitical kind of problems. But we have a Sicily trip coming up in October. And then what people kept asking that kept going on our trips was they kept saying, why don't you guys do this in New Orleans? So we launched it in last March. We had our first one that went really well. And then this holiday trip kind of really came about, organically in that I've been in tourism for 20 years around New Orleans and in the French Quarter, usually a week or two before Christmas. People are always kind of just saying, wow, like we just thought we were coming to a wonderful climate and getting away from wherever and didn't realize how New Orleans transforms for the holidays. And we're having the best time and there's such great spirit around town. And I was always, yeah, Why we're glad you're here. It's a wonderful time. And then here at the PRC, if you've looked at the itinerary, we have something called the Holiday Home Tour, which is something we've also done for 50 years, where we bring people around parts of New Orleans
Mhm.
and the Garden District, which is one of our historic neighborhoods. And you get to go in 5 or 6 or 7 Garden District homes that you rarely have access to. And that's our holiday home tour. It's in the second week of December. So we're like, we have this wonderful tradition. If we're going to do a travel trip, and I was talking with Sage, we were kind of figuring out when to target to do another one. It would be great to do it over the holidays. Let's chat about it. We started talking with y'all too at the Florida Trust, and everyone seemed to think there was just a wonderful time to do this trip. And it kind of came together. And over that week of deciding, I swear, at least like 4 people here at our office and around town came up to me without even knowing we were considering it and said, "You guys should really do a holiday trip." And I was like, we're actually thinking about it. The next day, someone completely different. You guys should do a holiday trip. Yeah, we're actually thinking about it. And by the end of that week, it was just kind of understood that, okay, this thing needs to happen because it's a real special time of year. And me and Sage have worked really hard kind of crafting this amazing itinerary that we're going to show you some of the highlights here in a second. Um, so do you want me to continue with the slide, Sage?
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you continue on with the highlights and specifics?
Okay, great. So you'll see right here, it's 6 days and nights here in New Orleans, 5 holiday celebrations, 4 private concerts, and 7 iconic meals. So what me and Sage really try to do when we put these trips together is me being a local, I've done a lot of stuff around town. I know a lot of people around town, but what we try to create is things that even our locals um, don't really normally get to do because instead of just walking off the street into a music venue or a restaurant, it's how can we make this a little added bonus? How can we tie it into the theme of the trip? So when we go to our Revion dinner, we're going to be learning about the history of Revion, and I'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of these private concerts, including one with Bruce Sunpai Barnes, who is a former NFL player, retired park ranger for 32 years, speaks the Creole language, and a famous Zydeco musician, accordion player. He's going to be doing a presentation for us talking about the Creole language and a historical figure called Juan Saint Malo in a great historical place called the Napoleon House, whereas that history goes back to the time of Napoleon. So we like to try to combine these things instead of just going to Napoleon House on its own as a highlight for some people, but we're bringing in Bruce Sunpai Barnes to do this kind of musical performance and demonstration. And it just adds a little bit to what is already an iconic lunch. And that's the kind of things we're trying to build into this itinerary. So here we have the Garden District Hotel. That's going to be the home base for the group. And it was recently named to Travel and Leisure's top 100 best new hotels in the world. So wonderful, beautiful property right in the Garden District. Recently renovated in 2025, basically a kind of a brand new hotel that built on the bones of some historic buildings. And it's right near the St. Charles Avenue streetcar. Just a wonderful property, literally the best pool in the city. They have a swim up bar every Thursday through Sunday. And I know a number of people, including someone who's sitting right outside my office here, who has a pass and goes there on the weekend. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful property. And they're so happy to have us there. So why this trip? Why this season? I kind of talked about it a little earlier that the city just comes alive for the holidays, which a lot of people don't expect. And some things we're going to encounter is one is the Revion dinner, which is actually going to be our closing dinner at Brennan's. Now, Revion goes back to the old French Creoles, who are kind of the original people of New Orleans. The term Creole kind of covers the original people of New Orleans, and once you're here, I'll explain it all in depth to you. But basically, that could be French, that could be Spanish, and that could be people of color, both enslaved and free. This is all back pre-Civil War. And very much Catholic city due to that French and Spanish influence. So, an old Catholic practice was you would fast on Christmas Eve. And so you wouldn't eat it all on Christmas Eve. Then you would go to midnight mass. And after midnight mass, you were naturally really hungry. So then you would go back to your house and have an amazing feast. And that was called a Réveillon dinner, where you would pretty much drink, eat, celebrate till the wee hours of the morning. Now, as Louisiana became part of the United States, some of the old Catholic and Creole traditions tended to fade in honor of like the more American celebration of Christmas that a lot of us know. But what ended up happening in the 1990s is people started going back to these Réveillon dinners. Now, not starting them at 2 a.m., because that's a crazy time to maybe start a big dinner and go till 6. If any of y'all want to do it, I'm always happy to. But we're going to be eating at a normal time. But some of our classic restaurants like Brennan's decided to bring this celebration back and make it more of a part of our holiday season. So they do these special Réveillon menus only during the holiday season. And it could be fantastic classics like turtle soup, which is one of my favorites, gumbo, shrimp remoulade, all cafe brulee, which is a lovely, when Sage was here last March, we had it. It's a lovely kind of coffee flambeau drink you have with a little bit of liquor, a little bit of coffee right after you eat. And it's a whole presentation of fire and cups. It's really neat. So it was one of my favorite things is cafe brulee. But that's a little bit about Réveillon. And do you want to go backstage to the screen with the six things that Réveillon was the start of?
Yeah, they each have their
Oh, they
individual
each have their
screen
own.
that
Okay,
moves
great,
forward.
great.
So
Perfect. So now we're going to be going to the Festival of the Bonfires. So normally on Christmas Eve is a big night for bonfires along the levee. Now this goes back also to the old days. This is the Cajuns, who are kind of my people, originally descendants of France, who ended up in Nova Scotia when no when Canada switched from French to English rule. The English really didn't want all these French there, so they kind of kicked them out. We could get more into that later. But they ended up coming down here to Louisiana, and they brought a lot of their old traditions with them. And one of them was lighting bonfires along the levee for Papa Noel, kind of the old French version of who we know as Santa Claus. And some even said that these bonfires were lit to light the way to midnight mass. So a lot of times these cultures kind of overlapped with different things. But on Christmas Eve is a big day for the bonfires, but of course, we don't want to drag everyone away from their families on Christmas Eve. So thankfully, up the river from here in New Orleans, they do what's called the Festival of the Bonfires a couple weekends before Christmas, where they light a couple of these big bonfires like you'll see in the photo and have a celebration. They have a gumbo cook-off with 100 local chefs cooking gumbo. So you get to try all these amazing gumbos from different local chefs. And gumbo is just like kind of a traditional soup, which we never say soup though. So don't say that. I'm just using it to explain. But like a stew, and it could be chicken and sausage, it could be seafood, it could be vegetarian, and all these gumbos at a pavilion along with Cajun and Zydeco music. And then we're going to all walk down to the levee where they're going to light one of these bonfires right along the Mississippi, like they've been doing for 200 years. So it's a really wonderful festival, which is going to be the Friday night of the trip. And then I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's our PRC's holiday home tour, which is one of the most anticipated events of the season, where for 2 days, people get to walk through about six or seven carefully selected homes that are decorated for the holiday season. You get to meet the homeowners sometimes, and it's all through our historic garden district, where in addition to the French Quarter, the garden district is probably one of our most grandest and historic neighborhoods. So we're all going to be kind of exploring those homes at our own pace. But if you're on this tour with us, we're going to get special access into a carefully selected home where we're going to meet the homeowners beforehand, have a mimosa or a coffee if you like, and get to kind of experience it before it's open to the public. So it's a wonderful thing. And this is kind of the benchmark in the middle of our holiday heritage tour. It's one of the reasons we kind of built this tour around this weekend. So this is City Draped in Light, and you'll see on the left is Celebration in the Oaks, which is our 30-year going big Christmas celebration in City Park. There's a botanical garden, and they cover all these big 600 year oak tree, 800-year oak trees with lights. They do the Cajun Night Before Christmas, where you get to walk up and it's an entire light show that happens. There's roasting marshmallows. There's a little train that goes through. There's a whole kind of big greenhouse filled with decorated Christmas trees. It's just wonderful. Me and my wife brought our baby to it last year. We had a great time walking around. And we try to go every year. It's just a great holiday tradition. And we're going to get to actually probably meet the lady who created Celebration in the Oaks when we arrive. So that's an extra little special treat. I didn't even tell Sage that yet. So that's a surprise for you, Sage. Um,
Amazing.
and on the right is the Roosevelt Hotel, where actually my grandfather worked in the 1930s. So my family has a lot of history in that hotel, but that's their lobby. And a lot of our lobbies decorate like that for the holiday season. The Roosevelt has always been a hotel, but some of our other classic hotels, like the Ritz, are actually kind of reimagined old classic department stores from 100 years ago. So we're going to do a little tour of all these historic lobbies, and I'll tell you a little bit about the history of the buildings and the history of the hotels when we go through it. But a lot of people go to the Roosevelt and take photos right there where that picture is as their like Christmas card photo. So it's one of the New Orleans traditions you'll get to be a part of. So this is one of our favorite things that we've kind of learned and evolved from our March trip. We had a lot of music as a part of our March trip, but we decided that if we're going to bring people to New Orleans, we want to have live music every day. So just these are some of the folks that we're going to have as part of either a meal or a special performance. Charmaine Neville, who's a member of the classic Neville family, who closed down the stage at the main Jazz Fest stage for 30 years. Aaron Neville, the Neville brothers. We're going to have her with a special guest at our opening dinner. I already talked a little bit about Bruce Sunpie Barnes, who's fantastic. We're going to have him at the Napoleon House. And then for lunch, we're going to have Eric Merchant, who's a wonderful kind of guitarist, along with Chloe Marie, who's from Cajun country, and she talks with way more of a Cajun accent than I can. And she's just a hoot, a great vocalist. Sometimes she brings her violin too, but she's a good friend and an amazing performer that y'all are just going to love to meet. And then right after our holiday home tour, we're going to be walking to Commander's Palace, which is a legendary restaurant. It's won the James Beard Award for Best Restaurant in the World a number of times in the Garden District. And it's also where, if you've heard of the chef Emeril Lagasse, he got his start there working in the kitchen, worked his way up to executive chef. And their current chef is fantastic. Her name's Chef Meg. And Meg is the first female lead chef in Commander's history, and she's been doing an amazing job. So we're really excited to bring everyone to Commander's Palace. It has a legendary reputation, but it's also a ton of fun right in the Garden District. And that's where we're going to be doing a great jazz brunch right at the end of the holiday home tour on Saturday.
I just gonna jump in here real quick. One of my favorite parts about this trip is the live music. I know most of you have probably been in New Orleans, maybe once, maybe many times, and know about the New Orleans music and have experienced it before. One of the things that I get so inspired by is that the music in New Orleans today is, well, we last time I was in New Orleans, we were talking with some musicians who are older. They're in their, I think, 60s or 70s and have been around playing for decades. And they were having a conversation amongst themselves, talking about how today the music in New Orleans is the music scene is stronger than it's ever been. The musicians are better than they've ever seen in their lives of being professional musicians there. And we all know about Louis Armstrong and the Wynton Marsalis, the Marsalis family, and all that. And it's got obviously had a very important history, but the just being one thing that's really important is the music. Kind of, at least for me, brings a lot of the magic throughout, bringing everything together with all the holiday traditions, amazing food, amazing architecture and the culture. But then you get these musical experiences, some which will be going out beyond these four mentioned on the slides, which are but there's also a lot of clubs. So we take you guys out to different jazz clubs to try to give suggestions or curate what we think is happening. And the New Orleans is like a music festival on a normal Monday night. I mean, if I there's more music going on there to see than most cities have on their most musical week of the year, when they have some festival going on. So it's but then for me, what's really special is seeing it in different contexts, because if going to the clubs is the jazz clubs is amazing, but one of the things that's really important is to experience the city in many of the special ways that the locals experience. But it's impossible as a traveler to experience that way. Like, for example, when music happens in a more informal setting, in someone's living room or on their porch or at a jam session or a concert that's just for a few people, and then you're hanging out and you're interacting with the musicians and you're getting to know them. And because it's part of life, it's not just a performance formalized concert, which is how it is in so many places. So that is really great. And we also, there's so many types of music. So part of it is we're working really hard to curate such a range and diversity of the many types of music styles, instruments, generations, types of people who are who play the music. Just wanted to add that. Russell, why don't you
Sure. To
tell
just
about
hop
the
in on the
people we
music
meet?
of what Sage said real quick is that what's really special about a lot of these, so it was great that Sage mentioned, we're gonna have suggested music every night, also being very aware of kind of if we don't have a dinner or something, where's the programming ending and giving a really easy access to see some great music really close to where we are that evening. But the real special thing about a lot of these that we're curating, like with Sunpai Barnes or with Eric and Chloe Marie, is that as they're performing, they kind of stop and they'll tell you stories about why this song is important or why they wrote the song. And that's what I love the best. And you really get it in those intimate settings. Sometimes at the club, they're just worried about playing the music. But when you get these kind of intimate settings, you get to just learn a lot about the artist. You learn a lot about the history of the music. And then after, you'll be able to chat with Sunpai and Chloe and Eric and get to know them a little bit because they're all like wonderful folks to get to know. And that's the kind of the special thing of some of the intimate ones we're curating. But also at night, there's going to be a plethora of things that we suggest of just great music to go check out and kind of adventure on your own too. And me or Sage will probably be there with you as well. So in addition to the music, we have some great programming tied in to this holiday trip. Is for one of the ones I'm really excited about, and one of the reasons that we decided to even launch this was this conversation with Dr. Leona Tate. So Dr. Leona Tate was one of three young girls who desegregated McDonough School number 19 in 1963. And when she was desegregating the school, the other parents were pulling their students out. It was a very tumultuous time in the 60s with civil rights. And the NAACP put together a program where they asked people from around the country to send Christmas cards to Dr. Tate and these two and other girls, along with Ruby Bridges, to kind of let them know that people around the country are thinking about them and supporting them. And they got wonderful Christmas cards from adults, but some of the most special ones are ones from children. And those are all at the Historic New Orleans collection where we're going to go. And Dr. Leona Tate is going to join us and talk about those Christmas cards, but also talk about her experience and her journey from being a 6 year old desegregating the school to actually now she owns the school. And it's the center of the Dr. Leona Tate Center where she focuses on civil rights and programming and education. So it's been a long journey for her. The school was abandoned 10 years ago and in ruins, and now it's completely renovated and it's her home base and it's all where she got to start as a 6 year old girl. So we're going to get to spend a wonderful program talking to Dr. Tate. And then we're going to venture up the river to the Descendants Project where we're going to meet Joy and Joe Banner. And I'm actually going out there next week to chat with them. So to kind of try to plan this at Woodlawn Plantation. So Woodlawn Plantation is the site of the largest slave revolt in U.S. history, but that's not really what the visit's about. The visit's about Joy and Joe and their activism because they are the descendants of enslaved people, and a lot of their relatives live in this community near Woodland. And an industry wanted to put in a big grain elevator right next to their community, which would have severely impacted their community with noise, pollution, trucking. And they were able to kind of stop that and have that grain elevator relocated to a much more rural area. so it wouldn't impact them. And we're going to hear that story. But as part of their activism in protecting their community, they ended up owning Woodlawn Plantation, which also has its own history. So they're turning Woodlawn into kind of a learning center where you'll learn about the history of woodland, but also learn about their activism. And they're in the process of kind of setting this up, and they're looking at our trip as kind of being the launch of Woodland and opening it to the public shortly after. So we're going to be one of the first groups to actually get access, and they're building towards December using us as kind of their target that they want to be ready for us and then open to the public shortly after. So it's going to be a really special trip to go up to the Descendants Project and see Woodland. And then Professor Richard Campanella's wrote like 30 books on the history of New Orleans and geography. He has a million things he could talk about, and he's going to talk to us about architecture. And he's fantastic. When he spoke to the group in March, I think, wasn't it on every person's highlight list, Sage?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the most extraordinary lectures in 90 minutes I think most of us had ever heard.
Yeah, and he's just fantastic, wealth of knowledge on the history of New Orleans. He's going to walk us through the entire history of architecture, Creole cottages, shotgun homes, American and Creole style townhomes, tons of history there. And that's going to be right here at the PRC, which is our headquarters, which is a building from a foundry in 1852. So you're going to get to come into the PRC, see our headquarters, hear from Dr. Richard Campanella. It's going to be a fantastic program. Okay, so what will we eat? This is awesome. This makes me hungry as we're approaching lunch. So Brennan's is considered what we call the one of the five old dames of New Orleans, which are classic kind of restaurants in the French Quarter. Brennan's is honestly probably the best of all five. It's Antoine's, Arnaud's, Brennan's, Broussard's, and Galatoire's. Brennan's was started by Owen Brennan, an Irishman in the 30s and 40s who kind of had a relationship with Count Arnaud, the owner of Arnaud's, just a business relationship. But Brennan's has been named top 50 restaurants in the country, I think like 3 of the last 5 years. So one of my favorite places to go. For anyone in Florida, I don't know what football team you support, but I'm of course a diehard Saints fan. And me and my wife try to go to Brennan's for breakfast at least once a season before a football game at noon. We already talked a little bit about Commander's Palace, but it's a restaurant that started out in the 1890s, started by Emile Commander just as a bar room. And then it has evolved into one of the top restaurants in the country and world, run by actually a granddaughter of Owen Brennan now, T. Brennan. So it's the a same group of the family that owns Brennan's owns Commanders, and it's one of the legendary places in New Orleans. Tableau is located right near iconic Jackson Square. Um, it's in the home of a former Spanish governor, and it has a ton of history I'm excited to share with y'all. It's only been around about 10 years because has an interesting story tied to the Le Petit Theater, which is one of the oldest operating community theaters in the United States since 1916. And the creation of Tableau really helped save Le Petit Theater. So they're still doing play productions there. Now it's been 110 years. But you'll learn all about the history of Tableau when we visit there for lunch. Dookie Chase is amazing. One of the historic restaurants. I think 4 presidents have eaten there, and was started by Leah Chase and her husband Dookie Chase, and used to just be kind of a little po' boy shop cafe, but has a rooted history in civil rights. Martin Luther King ate there, Malcolm X ate there. And you would go upstairs to this little room. And it's one of the only places in the 60s you could safely meet to discuss and plan things such as bus boycotts and diner counter boycotts. And that's why Leah Chase always said that she saved the country a bowl of gumbo at a time. So we're going to get to meet her granddaughter Tracy and her daughter Stella. So that'll be fantastic when we go to Dookie Chase, legendary civil rights establishment that has amazing food. Our opening night's going to be at Beggar's Banquet, which is about a block away from the Garden District Hotel where Charmaine Neville will perform. Kind of a little mom and pop restaurant. It's fantastic, run by Patty and her husband, who's the chef. So that's going to be a wonderful opening night meal. The gumbo is going to be awesome. I already talked about it. The Festival of the Bonfires. You're going to get 100 different chefs, so you'll be up to your ears in all the gumbo you could possibly try. And if you're not a big gumbo fan, there is going to be some other options too. We have daily breakfast at the hotel, and then the Sun Pie performance is going to be at the Napoleon House, which has a legend of used to be a house for a New Orleans mayor, Mayor Gerard, and it was said that he was kind of setting it up to be a refuge for Napoleon, who they were going to go rescue from the island of St. Helena and bring here to live in New Orleans. So I'll tell that whole story to y'all too when y'all join us. But it's also a great place that has originally started by an Italian family over 100 years ago. They're famous for a muffaletta, which is an Italian sandwich created here in New Orleans. They have great red beans and rice, and they're also known for their Pimm's cups, which is a drink that comes from London. Pimm's number one gin. Fantastic. I don't even like gin, but I could drink Pimm's cups all day. They're fantastic. So you don't even taste the gin, especially Napoleon House.
And one thing I'd like to add to food part of this is for me what's really cool and so special is that New Orleans is the probably the only uh, part of the U.S. that has a full its own original complete cuisine tradition with dozens of dishes and flavors because within the United States, and we have around the country. I mean, we all have our regional dishes. We all have different flavors, different things we like, different ways of cooking things, and things that we're proud of and famous for. But on the level of like Mexican cuisine or French or Italian or Chinese or Japanese or something that has like a full range of their own original cuisine. New Orleans is just like that. It has it that and in a very glorious way. And so we really want to just that's such an important part of it to really get into all so many different types of dishes and flavors and breakfast, lunches, dinners, desserts, drinks, cocktails, all the whole. There's just so much. It's such a rich well of food, and that's a essential part. So the next part, I'd like to continue from the food. We've talked about food, we've talked about music, architecture, history, and all these great things. But really, at the end of the day, beyond all that, what I think is most special and meaningful about this tour are the people that you meet. It's really all about the people. All these other things are just ways of um, of being with people, making friends, learning other people's stories, hearing different perspectives, and at the end of the day, having a good time. I mean, we're just really honestly going there to have a good time. That's really the one and only true hidden reason for this. And that comes in two forms. It comes in all the people that we're going to meet in New Orleans that we've been talking about, all these historical figures, these artists, these chefs, these entrepreneurs, these from all walks of life, of different generations and different cultures and different. And that's really amazing because that's something that's hard to do sometimes as a tourist. You get to do it a little bit when you travel, but this is a way of really taking that a lot farther. And the second part of that is the people you travel with, the people in your group. This is going to be a group of your colleagues, of people who you might know or you might not know before the trip, who are part of the Florida Trust community. And it's so by the end of the trip, everyone becomes close friends. And a lot of after these trips, people stay in touch and they get together for a monthly lunch or they have reunion parties or they do tons of things that go on forever. And it's one of the best ways to connect and make friends with other people. And so it's a really great way to come together with other Floridians and New Orleanians and just have a great time and just really celebrate the holidays the way we should be celebrating it every year. And a lot of times we don't because it just comes and goes and we're busy. We're like, oh, well, that was nice to go out a couple times and see my family for a couple days, and then now we're into the new year. So and these tours are highly appreciated. We've just all, all 5-star reviews and lots of great testimonials. Here's a few of them, both from the uh, previous trips like we've done to this New Orleans, as well as the Florida Trust trip to Cuba that we did last year. Which probably some of you were on, and remember. This is going to be, it's just like the Cuba trip if you were on that trip, just a totally different context, with a lot of parallels, but in terms of the way of traveling and experiencing a place, it's really not that different. I'm going to get through the next final slides quickly, just which are just kind of like details, just so we still have time for conversation, any questions that people have. But basic pricing, registration, we can we'll put I don't know if Krista or Natalie want to put the links in the chat to the general info of the online brochure and the itinerary that goes in very detail exactly what we're going to be doing every day and what's included and all that stuff, all the technical elements to it, and the here's a summary of that. Pretty much everything is included. Once you get there, it's just a magic carpet ride that we're just on together for the week. And there's a couple of things that are not included for good reasons. One is 2 dinners on your own, and the reason is just because there's a lot of food, and we just get 3 big meals a day. It's just too much for people, so it's nice to kind of like have a few gaps, and that all the wonderful food we're going to be having, and it's also nice to just get a chance to go out on your own. There's a few 2 evenings where we'll, as we said, we'll take you out to jazz clubs and good restaurants, and we'll be with you to have a lot of fun if you want. But you can also feel free to just explore, by yourself or with whoever you traveled with, and have the time to do that. The flights are also not included because some of you might want to drive. Some of you might be coming from other places and have, points in the ways you like to travel. So we leave that up to you, but we give you full guidance on when to arrive, exactly, how to make it as easy as possible. And so, but everything else is all included. So there's really not a whole, many other costs other than the cost of the trip and getting yourself there. And yeah, we just really support you with everything, give you a lot of information, a reading list, good movies, good music, good books, good things to really enriches the trip a lot, to get into some of the literature and media about New Orleans before and after the trip, and while you're there as well. Such a great canon of books and stuff like that, and as well as all the travel information you need. So we really do our best to make sure that every last element is easy, and you don't really have to, think. We just try to make it so it's not another thing that you have to put in any work to or stress or worry about. So, which is a nice element of travel, because travel can be stressful and be a lot of work as well. So, but not in this case. We're all available to answer any questions you have. Please reach out to us. Here are our phone numbers. You could take a screenshot or write it down, but it's also provided in all the trip information and everything. And so please reach out to us and let us know if you have questions. But while we have another 10 to 15 minutes left for this lunch and learn, let's take the opportunity now. If anyone has any questions, we'd love to answer those.
Yes. All right, thank you so much, Sage and Russell. That was fantastic. And it looks like Russell already answered a bunch of questions we already had in the meeting chat. So thank you. He let us know that wine and spirits would be included. Talked a little bit about the Creole languages to be discussed, and I think that capping the travel group at 24, which hopefully resolved a lot of questions. But thank you all again. And if our guests, if you have, this is the time to take your self off mute and ask any questions, or stick some more of your questions in the chat, and we'll get them answered at this time. Let's see. Okay, we had a question about the pricing. So maybe I think there was a slide about that a couple slides back. Is that right?
Yeah, I can go to that, back to that real quick. So the price is $4,875 per person, double occupancy, which means that if you're sharing a room with someone, because the cost of the hotel, it's a nice hotel, and if you have your own room and are single, the price is more because the rate covers the whole hotel room. So if you're going as a single occupancy with for a room, it's 5,960. Any other specific questions about that, or just what the price is?
Can you pull up the
It looks
slide
like that's
page?
Oh yeah, are you
got
see
it.
the slides up?
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's all I see in the chat right now. So maybe that does it. Sage and Russell, did you have any follow up comments before we start to wind down, or questions?
I guess I'll just say I would love for
Mm-hmm.
y'all to join us here in New Orleans for the holiday season. I'm very excited about this itinerary. Whenever any of our locals see it, they're just blown away by the things we're going to be doing. It's going to be a ton of fun, and it's going to be a great holiday season. So would love for y'all to join us, and please reach out on that slide to me with questions. If you have any detailed questions, we'd love to talk about it with y'all.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much. And thank you everyone too for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you or your company is interested in sponsoring a future Lunch and Learn, please email Laura Glenn at the Florida Trust, and her contact information will be added to the chat. And if you're not already a member of the Florida Trust, please consider joining today for access to free webinars like these and many other great benefits, like our newly relaunched preservation passport program. And also on July 30th, our next Lunch and Learn is going to be on Florida's 250th and the British West Florida history. Well, we'll explore Florida's unique role as a loyal British colony during the Revolutionary era, which is super interesting. I didn't realize that. And we'll have, there's our registration link right there. Thank you, Natalie. So stay tuned to our monthly newsletter and website and socials for more information. And all registrants for today's Lunch and Learn will get a follow-up email in the coming days with the link to this video and the presentation materials and all the handouts and all that jazz. Oh, that was like a New Orleans pun. All right. Well, thank you so